Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Inside the OC podcast. My name is Matt Canizaro, and we are looking forward to another terrific show today. This is the first of what will be a two-part Ladies of the OC segment here on our weekly podcast. And today, looking forward to talking to the USBC and PWBA Hall of Famer, Wendy Macpherson. She made some cool things happen back in 2006 when she became the first woman to win a regular division title at the USBC Open Championships. We'll talk about that year and so much more for the Hall of Famer. Right now, let me bring in my co-host from Kentucky, Daniel Ferris. How are you today, sir?
Matt, I am counting down the days until the barbershop opens and I can get this mop taken care of. I've given up, as you can tell, using any kind of hair product because it takes so much hair product to get it to stay in place. It's not even worth it. So next Tuesday at noon. So next Tuesday's show, I'm going to be looking pretty dapper. But until then, I look as slovenly as the rest of us who are hosting all these great podcasts on Bowl TV.
Well, here I thought you were going to say you couldn't wait till we get to do this in person or do this in the National Bowling Stadium with that great backdrop. But okay, haircut, that's a close second, I guess, to getting your hair did. That's fine.
It's a first world problem, really. It is, Matt.
I understand. Well, we're looking forward to hopefully you can make it through today with without your hair in the eyes, and we've got some great stories coming from the Hall of Famer. You are a bowling fan, a historian. I know you enjoy talking to these Hall of Famers and hearing about the good old days and the new days and everything in between. Without further ado, let's bring her in from Las Vegas area, Henderson, Nevada. Wendy Macpherson, welcome to our show.
Oh, Matt, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me. What a thrill. It's been an absolute joy to be part of a couple podcasts and reminisce a little bit and talk bowling, which is fun. We all miss it.
Well, you've made the rounds a little bit on the different shows, and this one, of course, dedicated entirely to the USBC Open Championships. You'll have a chance to talk about some different memories, maybe some different things than you've had to talk about on some of the other shows, which is great. I think this is going to be a great one, some terrific memories and moments for you. Looking forward to diving back into those back in 2006 and the few years that followed. First, we'll catch up with kind of how things are going for you right now. You're in the Las Vegas area, which unbelievably is incredibly quiet. The Strip is quiet. The lights are dark at times. And I saw your husband, Nick, posted some photos at one point. You guys made it out there. Talk about that. Usually the bustling Las Vegas, finally quiet for a moment.
It is quiet. And, the day the shutdown happened, we jumped in the car that evening, probably about 11:55, 12 midnight, watched all the locks get put on doors. It was quite intimidating in that I had never quite, seen a city so quiet, as any city is quiet, I think, at this time. But lights were still bright at that day. Probably the next few days, lights were really bright. And then we went back down maybe 2, 3, 4 days into the lockdown. So maybe March 20th, 21st, somewhere in there. Still surreal, but went down and checked it out. It was even more quiet. My husband loves photography, so it was part of a photo experience of a lifetime to go down on the Strip and have no people in the photos. So we did that, and I have not been back to the Strip since. So that's been 2 months. And, I'm fortunate where I live. We're able to see a bit of the Strip, and it's been sad in the aspect of a majority of the lights are dimmer. The city is definitely not as bright as it usually is, but understandably they're saving on costs, so on and so forth. Waiting patiently to see the lights bright again, just to know that the city, state, country, hopefully at one point here soon, are going to start venturing and opening up. But I'm doing well. Been home for 2 months. I work for High Roller, running bowling tournaments, military tournaments. But we've been quiet at work, our office closed down, non-essential. But I'm well. I've missed my friends though. I've missed seeing faces. I miss a lot of things like everybody else does. I'm fortunate, Daniel, in that I didn't need a haircut, and that the longer it goes, no problem. Just keep putting it back in a ponytail. You can get a man bun if worse comes to worse. I'm sure.
No, no, I will take a flat blade and shave it all off before I rock a man bun.
Well, come on. I bet you try it just once. Do a selfie, hide it in your phone, and
there you go.
For reference, right?
That might be a situation for a Polaroid. I don't even know that I want that accessible via the internet or any kind of wireless capability.
For accidentally posting, you're exactly right. So, yeah,
exactly.
We are waiting and waiting and waiting as everyone wins the next phase. Our numbers have been really good in Vegas and state of Nevada. A lot of questions on when the next phase will open up. Every day, newspaper has casinos, gaming, speculations of when things will happen. I'm sure a lot of people wish it happened yesterday. Some people don't want it to happen for months, but we're ready, I think.
Well, now for you guys, especially in the Las Vegas area, many or most of the events are held inside bowling centers in the casinos as well. And that's two different worlds, really. If they were freestanding, it might be a little bit different of a story. Again, as you said, day by day, you're checking the papers and the news, and things are changing, even some recent updates. But as far as your role, of course, we know you had a great career on the lanes, the Hall of Famer, and decided to serve the sport in a little different, facility there. Talk about that, the role behind the lanes, behind the scenes, kind of what you're doing right now to keep all of that going, to keep in touch with people, and what kind of planning you guys have in store right now, or if you can't even do anything besides just let the folks know that you're not forgetting about them.
Exactly right. Part of a couple phone calls here and there is what's happening. We have a huge tournament happening. Work-wise, again, I'm working for High Roller. We have a huge August military team classic happening at South Point, and number one question on the phone calls has been, are we having a tournament? And as of today, yes. But again, we're waiting patiently, as you said, Matt. Every bowling center is governed by gaming rules, regulations, because we do not have a freestanding bowling center in Las Vegas. They all are in casinos and governed by the gaming rules and regulations. So, it's going to be one of the phases that happen when the casinos do open up. But, so that's been a very common question. Trying to let everybody know that we simply don't know yet as what rules, regulations, what part of the phase. Obviously, anytime something opens up sooner, it allows more time to go by to get deeper into the phases, to expand capacity, so on and so forth. So any business really wants to get going ASAP, so that in the month's time, in the 2 months' time, a bit of normality is brought back to that establishment. So we at High Roller, like I said, simply waiting, and it's been a phenomenal job. Being a bowler my whole life, bowling's been my love. Never did I think I'd ever end up in this position where I'm working administratively part of a tournament. I always thought I'd be the bowler, and then I'm trying to think, 6-7 years ago, I went to my boss, Brad Edelman with High Roller, and let him know I needed to get a full-time job because I was kind of coming and going off the PWBA Tour, hadn't fully come back, coming and going from Japan, got kicked out of Japan, so now I'm unemployed, and so I needed a full-time job, and that's how I ended up working for High Roller full-time. In director of promotions for the bowling tournaments, and we have just grown and grown and grown and grown, and it's my love. I love it as much as actually bowling. Two loves. How fortunate am I?
All right. Well, now before we reminisce a little bit about some of the online performances that you've had, it sounds like you've been incredibly busy, both with the bowling and now serving the sport. But before we really dive in, we want to ask just about kind of the things that you've been able to do now the last couple of months, maybe that you don't usually have time for. Anything really stand out? Anything enjoyable that's just unusual or that you'd always wanted to do and hadn't?
Not a whole lot. I still have my knitting and crochet that I got as a gift 5 years ago that's still sitting there, so I didn't take up that. Honestly, it interests me to learn a little bit of crocheting, so on and so forth. I've always read, still reading, doing a lot of walks, getting out. There are areas around my house that I have not been to in 30 years. Sorry, I'm exaggerating. 28 years I've lived in Henderson, and there are things that, I've never been down to the wetlands. It's literally 2 miles from my house. I've never been down there. Had the opportunity to do a number of walks down there, bike rides, a lot of different things, areas just to get out that I hadn't ever done, that we made an effort to do during this time. We've all done our usual clean the grout on the tiles and all that boring stuff, the housework type of things that you've been putting off. The spring cleaning came at exactly the right time, but nothing too wild as far as jumping on and doing a 2-month adventure while being home. Nothing too wild.
All right. Well, yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to steal you away from the soft scrub and the pine saw for a little while, and we're gonna hop in the time machine, and we're gonna go back to the 1980s first, 1986, and Wendy Macpherson is a high school student and a talented bowler, and on the verge of some pretty significant decisions as far as what to do with a career, or maybe not. Maybe it was already pretty decided at that point that you were going to go out and be a professional superstar. And then the U.S. Women's Open happened, and you won that event at 18 years old. Just talk about that point in your life and kind of where you thought you were headed and maybe how that moment changed everything for you.
It did. And, I grew up in bowling every day. I had, in high school, I worked 4 years at the Early Anthony Danville Bowl. Every day of the week I worked down there. And so I worked 5 days a week at a full-time job along with school. I was always a pretty good student. I also was allowed to address the local school board. And I actually addressed them with the fact that I bowl so much and bowl every weekend in the junior tournament growing up in Northern California, that they allowed me to apply all that time I did for bowling to my PE time. So I don't know if it was great. Because
That's cool.
That let me get out an extra hour and a half early. And by doing so, I could go down and practice and or get to work and practice. So it all was bowling initiated through bowling. So I always think of my high school bowling a little different than the high school bowling nowadays, where it's observed as a club sport. But I did almost a club sport by myself. And through the 4 years, part of my junior bowling was with Pat Costello through Earl Anthony's Dublin Bowl down in Dublin, California. And through her friendship and bit of coaching, I learned about the LPBT, Ladies Professional Bowlers Tour. And at that time, that's all I wanted to do was go out on tour when I turned 18 and graduated from high school. And through Pat's help, was when I was able to purchase an entry into the 1986 U.S. Open. And because at that time you couldn't just enter, you had to win a spot. And I believe there were some spots empty that allowed me to purchase it, which is how I got into it, being 18 years old and still in high school. So I went to Topeka, Kansas, Stage Bowl, Mr. Rex Haney there in Kansas. I went on my Easter break with 2 balls. You know, the vintage, I still see them on sale, the brown bag that had the 2 balls and the shoes went under, and you had the plastic handles that pinched your hand. And I went with 2 balls, a urethane ball at that time, and a white dot spare ball. Went there and bowled for my Easter break. And that at that point, I had already planned after I graduated from high school that I was going to go out on the road. There was a number of tournaments at that point. I'm guessing 20 tournaments. There was a regular tour stop, a regular season. So I was going to do that. And, again, going back to the collegiate part of it, I believe maybe Wichita had a club bowling. If I can remember that far back, 1 or 2 had bowling. It wasn't collegiately a thing as it is today. And so that's how I ended up going out on tour. I figured I could always go back to school. I could have signed up and gone back to school today to get my college degree. But I didn't know how long I had to bowl. And I was itching and ready to venture the world. So that's how I started in 1986. Graduated in June, and I passed and went out on tour in July. And was the rest is history in the sense of it was a phenomenal decision on my part. I wouldn't have changed a thing. It is absolutely. It was exactly what I wanted to do in life.
Now, while you were explaining kind of the process and the path there, Daniel posted a pretty memorable and important clip in your bowling career. Daniel, what was it that we just took a look at there?
That was the 10th frame of your 1986 U.S. Women's Open Championship as an 18-year-old senior in high school. You beat some of the best women players in the world to capture that event. What was it like as still being a senior in high school to win the Women's U.S. Open at 18 years old?
A dream. You see your kid, I remember seeing a Kobe Bryant clip in his memorial, and it was a young kid throwing socks in a basket, and it's your dream to shoot that one, free throw or that one shot that's the win. And you look back, and you grow up seeing yourself throw shots like that, holy mackerel type of thing. And it's a dream. And I got done with it, and more money than I knew, what to do with type of thing. At that point, it was $12,000. $12,000 is what I won. But here I am earning $3.45 an hour. I mean, $12,000 is a ton of money. It was all my money that I used to fund myself out on tour. I never asked for a penny in loans and help. It funded 100% of my tour. So that was so not only mentally, again, young. Now I had to go back to school. I had to get back on the plane, head home. I remember taking that Monday off, and I was old enough to sign. At that time, you could sign your own absence. So because I was 18 years old, still in high school, you could write your excuse for an absence. So I wrote a little note that I was, please excuse me for being absent yesterday, type of thing. Little did I know that every hallway, and I went to Los Lomas High School in Walnut Creek, California, and every hallway had banners. The whole school lined every hallway congratulating me with signatures. I still have them. Wow. And I walked in, and they just were my friends for life. Well, little did I know. Well, I did know. I only had 2 more months at school until I graduated from high school. Too bad that didn't happen as a freshman. I'd had carte blanche and all my excuses. But they loved me. They thought it was cool. Wendy the bowler, and a lot of recognition from all the teachers and staff and fellow students from school. But it was fun to go back to school and celebrate with all my lifelong friends, type of thing. And it also, I went right out and bought a car and did a couple of other things. And it's just a dream come true. It's that one. And watching it, wow, you wish I had a little bit of that ball speed. And I always, that's how you dream of bowling a title match. Where the heck did that come from? Oh my gosh. The funny thing is being 18 years old and winning, tradition was everybody always used to stay around for the TV show. A lot different nowadays. Everybody has their own agenda and gets up and gets on a plane and leaves, and there's only 2 players left in the show. And so, but years before, it was a big deal to stay in the show and celebrate with the winner. Well, I remember paying $300 and something for my bar tab. Mind you, I'm 18 years old. I didn't have an alcoholic drink. It was a private club upstairs from the bowling center because it was a dry county. Point being is it cost me $300 and something to pay for the bill of this party that I didn't even get 1 ounce of alcohol and 1 ounce but it was a great celebration. Memories of 30-something years ago. Great. It was great to see that.
Even now, hearing the story and hearing the story of you walking into school after the win, it's goosebumps. And we're going to have a few more of those moments as we roll through the next 40 minutes or so and talk about the Open Championships. And you went on to have a terrific professional career, 20 titles, half dozen majors. And by the time our paths finally crossed at the Open Championships, the PWBA was on hiatus, and you were off in the real world doing new things. And then for your Open Championships career, it wasn't until 2005 that you made your first appearance with us, and that one was a bit challenging. It looks like from looking at the numbers, and Daniel, of course, is our resident numbers guy. But a tough start for you in 2005. I guess my first question is, with the ladies being able to bowl in the Open Championships a little bit earlier than that, what took so long to get you to come join us in Baton Rouge that year?
Help me here. Were we allowed? I thought being a PBA member or a PWBA member, I believe there was a stipulation on. I think wasn't that the first year I was allowed to bowl.
There was a few restrictions. I believe it could have been another year or two earlier, but at the most. But just tell us about that first year and how you got involved and just some of your teammates and some pretty awesome teammates in that group as well. So it's always a lot of fun when you guys roll through.
Sure, and that those teams, I believe there was 2 teams. We went from Sunset Lanes Renatas, that was with Dave Wadka and Paul Renteria and Joel Reynoso. We went, and that was purely done by the local. Those were all local. All those bowlers I went with were bowling out of the center that I was bowling with. And we went to Baton Rouge as a group. I believe Carol Giannotti was there. She bowled on another team. But we also did team doubles and singles. I did team doubles and singles in one day because there was a miss. My doubles partner booked a flight home that night or the first thing the next morning. So we were forced to do the 11 p.m. squad, I believe. So I bowled team in the morning, doubles and singles at night. My first time ever there. Again, very intimidating. We at the women's Open Championships, we did not have carry out your balls, walk down the center medium. We were not stadium at that point. It was a very intimidating feeling as you entered the Open Championships at that. For me, it was very unlike anything else I had done. We had always simply bowled in bowling centers. And so the walk, everything about it, people looking at you, it just was different than I was used to. So, help me here. Didn't I at least average 200 the first year, Daniel?
No, you did not. You went 570 in team event, 630 in doubles, and then 518 in singles. So you shot 1719.
Ah, I couldn't even. I know we had a drunk guy on our lanes at 11 p.m. He fell like 4 times at the arrows and was excused, finally removed. So that was it was one of the most unbelievable things I'd ever seen in bowling. He wasn't part of our group or our team. He was one of the other teams that had come over and joined us. So I know I've never seen it since. I guess it was that one time. Really, 17, 19, really.
Yep.
Huh.
Well, but things got better the following year. Yeah.
Yeah. So the good news is you decided to come back, and again, you guys are always a riot when you come to town. Always fun to hang out off the lanes. But you did come back, and some things leading into 2006, of course, in your personal life, really changed perspective on a lot of things. And we almost didn't get to see you in Corpus Christi, Texas. I know, this is going to be a little bit tougher story for you to tell. But talk about the months leading up to your appearance in Corpus Christi, and just what great friends you have to really be able to talk into coming out and taking your mind off things for a minute. And then we'll talk about what actually transpired in the American Bank Center that year.
Yeah, so after I bowled the first year, got together with my women's Open Championship teammates, Carol Giannotti, Gina Darshevsky, Jill Albrecht at that time, Maxine Abel. We had bowled a number of years together for the women's part of it. So, hey, you guys, let's do this for the Open Championship. I think we were Classic Lanes Greenfield, along with High Roller, for maybe 4 or 5 years, if my memory serves me. Anyways, that was planned to do. And because we had planned it so late, I believe the only open opportunity we had was the second to last day, the last 3 days of the tournament. All the other dates were already full. So this was now the end of June. It might have been July 1st, 2nd in there. It was planned to do that back in December, January, whenever we signed up for it. So as my life went along, my father lived with Nick and I, and my mother had passed away in 1992, and my father moved up to Vegas, lived with my sister, and then moved and lived with Nick and I. Loved my pops. My pops went to every practice session with me. He was fortunate, retired in 1986. There was no time. He always had time. So we practiced every day, my dad and I. And anyways, Dad was living with us and started not feeling well. And come to find out, maybe February, March, my dad had cancer. And by the time everything happened, it was too late for any type of work, any medical intervention was past the point. So we had set up, maybe like March-ish, had set up a hospital bed in my home, rearranged the whole house. There's absolutely no way my dad living in a bedroom. My dad lived in the family room with us. We all slept. My sister and I moved down to my house. My sister moved down. So for 3 months, again, bowling that year in Corpus Christi was the last thing on my mind. My mind was simply my dad. For 3 months, maybe March, April, May, I never got dressed. I never went to the bowling center, never did anything. We were hanging with Pops. And hospice was called in, and I had gone to women's nationals. It was an okay time to leave, I thought. And I had gone to women's nationals mid-June, only to be called back home, that I needed to get home ASAP. My sister called. And she had missed, it was my first Queens, I believe, 2006 in June. I had missed my first Queens and came back home with to my dad. And my father passed on June the 23rd. And part of my parents' wishes and desires were cremations and viewing the cremations and so on and so forth to make sure we got the right body, so on and so forth. So we did all of that. I picked up my father's ashes on Thursday. And I say Thursday because I can't remember what date. It would have been maybe the 30th, maybe the 29th, Thursday, and that it was the day before I left on Friday to go to Corpus Christi. So now I have to bowl. I'm walking, getting home with my dad's ashes, and my sister had to work. And anyways, I get home and I'm packing now to go to Corpus Christi on Friday. I had a flight to go to Corpus Christi. Met up with Gina and Maxine and Carol and Jill. We bowled team event on Saturday, and on Sunday, next thing I know, I just strike all the time, and I win the Eagle. And 3 days before that, I didn't throw a bowling ball in 4 months. I didn't even practice one ball in 4 months. And I just threw my stuff in my bowling bag and flew to Corpus Christi. And I wanted, first thing, Matt, I remember seeing you, and I wanted to call my dad, and only to realize that my dad a week and a half ago had died. And I'm trying to call my sister and my husband, and most unbelievable thing, that zone, but that power's from above. I have no idea how it's happened. Because, Daniel, you go back now in some time, and I believe you probably can't even find statistically a 700 in singles. Am I correct?
Throughout your entirety of the event?
On my entirety of all the events. I bet there's not even a 700 in singles. You've got
a 705 and a 702, but nothing extravagant.
Okay. So I didn't even know that. I thought maybe a couple of 680, 690. So it wasn't that it was one of my strongest things. I believe I had higher scores in some team and doubles events prior to that. The singles have never been my thing. All of a sudden, boom, 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 I win by a pin. And I can remember, and typically the more nervous that I get, the more I shrink. My hand shrinks. So when I struck the first ball in the first ball, I knew 8-something was leading it. I've always tried to not really, it's irrelevant what the scores are. I'm going to try to strike every ball and see where it lands. It's always been my philosophy. I think I don't want to know really what the scores are. I just want to do my best type of thing. So I struck the first ball in the 10th, and I put my fingers in my grip, put my thumb in, and my fingers went all the way down to conventional grip. Point is that's how small. I mean, I was shaken because I knew that first one in the 10th put me at 8-something. So boom, 6. I got 6, and I remember looking at the rest of the teammates, and I'm like, question. What was the leading singles? What's leading? And all I know is Maxine looked at me, the girls looked at me, and Max was like, get them all. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to pick up a 6-count bucket to win this thing. Are you kidding me? I can't even hold on to the ball. My fingers are so small, and how am I going to do this? Anyways, I got 3. And I'm like, was that enough? And they're like, 110. I'm, oh my Lord, how did this happen? It was one of the most, I rank that as and in career-wise, I rank that as one of my top 4 ever in my life of achieving an eagle at an Open Championship. I mean, I had, obviously, I was well aware of ABC, WIBC, USBC history. Very well aware of it, being part of it since 1986, of all of the bowling, every year bowled. But I never dreamt I would be in that position, let alone where my life had led the 3-4 months prior to it. I just became an orphan, and now I'm winning an eagle. Are you kidding me? It was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever been part of. I am totally the perfect person to say if I could do it, anybody could do it. Having never thrown a ball for 4 months prior to that type of thing. It was one of the most unbelievable things.
Well, and I kind of want to focus on the nerves that you talked about. I mean, at this time in your career, you were a 20-time PWBA titleist, 3 Queens titles, a U.S. Women's Open title as an 18-year-old. You've bowled on the biggest stage possible in bowling, and now you're at the OC, and you're nervous stepping up into the 10th frame. At any part of this, was it you talked about, the history of the USBC and what this title meant. Was there a part of you that was also considering the fact that no woman had ever won an Open Championships title before?
I knew, I knew that was it, but it wasn't necessarily I am definitely not a woman this or that. I'm proud to be a woman, but it wasn't the fact that I was first woman. Never, ever. It was an eagle, irregardless of sex. And that was my main concern, my main focus. I think anybody who doesn't have nerves is kidding themselves. I think anyone who, it's how you really look at it and achieve out of it. And I think I think the minute you don't have nerves or butterflies or anything like that, I think you're fooling yourself and or you're not taking it serious enough. Because there's a whole way to think about having nerves and how you want to get in the zone and how you practice to get into the zone and how you train your body to do something regardless of your nerves, because your practicing isn't just for practice, it's to train, and you train your mind to work with your body, and and a lot of times too, the longer you take, the more you dwell on your nerves, the worse off you are. So you understand your nervousness, you better go, otherwise you're going to get stuck there not being able to pick up a foot type of thing. But that's all part of training and how you go about to train your body to do what you've taught it to do.
Well, let me correct myself. You were the first woman to win a regular division title at the Open Championships. The minute that I said it, I was like, that's wrong. Now you did this on the second to last day of the event, so your wait to see if your score would hold up was the shortest of anyone we've had on the show, and arguably the shortest of anyone who's ever won an eagle, at least one of the shortest at the event. What was that next 36 to 48 hours like, waiting for the last couple of squads to get done and then waiting for the phone call or the announcement that you'd won?
Anytime you wait for something, I'm lucky, and I had to wait a day. I didn't go crazy waiting months and months and months. I checked the score. I knew when doubles and singles squads were happening. I was well aware of it, and I was, because the doubles and singles always follows the team event, so that would have happened on either the Monday or the Tuesday, correct? After, I believe that all happened on Sunday. I think Monday or Tuesday was the last doubles and singles event. How cool is that? Again, as a kid, you dream of making that shot, and that all happens, and you want to be the winner right then and there, and only wait 36 hours. It was cool. I thought my odds increased tremendously in that, you do it on opening day, your odds aren't probably all that, well, you don't know, depending on the score, but chances are somebody along the way in the next 4 or 5 months is going to beat you. But one day to go, your odds increase tremendously. So it was quite fun waiting for that phone call, you know.
Well, now to put it in a little bit different perspective too for the folks at home, just to kind of surround the historical part of it. To that point, very few women had bowled 300 at the Open Championships, and heading into that event, none had reached the 800 mark. The first 300 of the year was Jeanette Prysinski, another former standout on the ladies tour, and of course Crystal Scott shot an 800 series in the team event earlier in the year as well. So really the floodgates kind of open there for some really cool things to happen. And then for you, everybody who was close to you at that point knew that you'd had a tough couple months and a few days especially. So didn't really know what to say. And then all of a sudden, having not practiced and bowled, you're out there, you start striking, and there's the 300 at one point, 17, 18 in a row, just kind of in that zone, as you had mentioned, and then making history, leaving the bucket in the 10th frame there, the 6-3, your teammates rallying around you, telling you, just get it. And then one pin, the difference. 8-11 was the leader at the time. Even better, again, the second to last day of the event, the TV news was in the building as well. They were talking about what's next for the convention center, what's next for the bowlers. They wanted to talk to some players. They were there to watch this unfold, the potential. They understood the storylines. The first woman to win a regular division title was a day away potentially. And you, as expected, of course, as the professional that you were, after you delivered that performance, you went and you talked to the newscasters, and of course you did all the things that come as part of the price of fame. And knowing kind of what you were feeling inside, once we got back to the office, that's really when the emotional part of it happened for you. Very impressed and appreciative at how you kept it all together and did the ambassador part of what you do as well. But then talk about heading back to the PR office, getting to sit down, think it over, starting to sink in a little bit, and then the whole emotion of it starts to hit as far as what you've accomplished and what you've just been through in the months and the year prior.
Matt, I look at this now. It's been years and years since I've seen that score and see the games, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and so emotional. And again, my family and friends have always been my number one fans, but my father was, my first instinct was to pick this up to talk to my dad. And do I believe powers from above? Absolutely. I am absolutely the person that it happened to. And never in my all I did was strike that day in that event, and it was just trying to calm me to make sure that I knew I was going to be all right. I think.
Well, and that really was kind of a new beginning for you in your bowling career. The PWBA, of course, still on hiatus, but you still had the Queens and the U.S. Women's Open and other events, and at that point too, an opportunity to be on Team USA. So this all kind of snowballed a little bit, and you really got going again. You got to be on Team USA a couple times, added a couple gold medals to your collection as well, and just some great things started happening. And from unfortunate circumstances to some very positive things happening. You got the Eagle. You mentioned that being such a significant accomplishment and part of your career. Let's transition now to the Team USA. You did add some more success at the Open Championships. You had a couple 299 games in the years that followed. So clearly you like that stage. And there you are with that Eagle, of course. What a special presentation that must have been.
Look at how young I was, that was, Kofi's sitting over there, and, it was, I cry a little bit in happiness, and I cry of memory. Oh, here. See? Right here.
It is.
Yeah. It was, it actually ended up, it rejuvenated me, and a lot of good comes out of a lot of traumatic events in people's lives, and it gave me the push to get on the Team USA and bowling's not over type of mentality, and to get going and still live type of thing, And again, I sit here with let me go back a little bit before we go on. I find it interesting. One of the biggest things, and I got a little chill when I saw the scoreboard, is I saw lanes 19 and 20. And I can remember all the years we bowled at Samstown for the LPBT, then PWBA. The head mechanic, Mike Benown there, and still works at Samstown. But the TV show was always on 19 and 20 at Samstown. And every time I came to bowl at Samstown, when the players' banners were dropped off for the bowling center to hang, Mike Benown always put my banner on 19 and 20. And it was our little thing, because that was a TV pair, and he always never wanted to move it. It was his, Wendy, I'm behind you. I never want to move your banner for the TV show. So I put it there at the beginning of the week, so that's your pair. I didn't realize in all of that. And as you grow older, you look at, I was single, 19 and 20 was where this all happened. And, you never realize the clues in life and where you're going and what you're doing until you can always look back and see signs here and there. And I just found that it's just a little trivia. I found that very interesting to see that 19 and 20 there. That was part of Las Vegas and part of Samstown and part of Mike Benown's and mine's ritual of every tournament bowling at Samstown. It's just fun fact.
Well, we certainly appreciate the great insight, the terrific stories, and all the emotion today as well, as we roll through the career and the amazing things that you realize that maybe you didn't realize at the time. So it's pretty phenomenal. Thank you for sharing all of those details. Certainly. As we roll on through the next portion of your career, we do have a lot of folks tuning in and commenting in our chat. A lot of friends of yours and fans of ours, hopefully, and we certainly appreciate everybody tuning in across all of our platforms today. We have some great questions, some OC related, some not. Maybe we'll take one or two of those before we talk about the success you had with Team USA and that whole experience, which is a completely different world for you as well, coming off the PWBA Tour. Daniel, anything noteworthy from the chat?
Yeah, a couple of great comments from some people. Selwyn Anthony Morgan said, since lockdown, I've been watching lots of videos of bowling tournaments, and Wendy was awesome. John Trzynski sends his love. Wendy Mac, I love and miss you, my friend. Gus Yanaris, great player, but better person. A lot of people in the chat talking about what a great person you are, not just a great player. Here's a question from Kevin Clark watching over on our YouTube channel. Who might be your favorite bowler to bowl against? And then who was a bowler you couldn't stand bowling against?
Oh, no.
Oh. How do we ever have a favorite bowler to bowl against? They weren't a bowler. It was just a score they were posting. It's always how I tried to look at it. I always think that somebody, I'm not going to say who I can't stand to bowl against. LOL. I never really cared for those ones that took forever to get up and bowl. It's like, come on, you're kind of, I always was. One of the great adventures I had in life going to Japan and bowling JPBA is that you were required to, when it was your turn, you went. So it went left, right, you. There was no wave left, wave right, go. So when you say bowling against, there was never, my only issue I ever had with bowling against somebody would have been simply that they took too long. They putted. They were forever to bring their stuff to the ball, to the lanes. Forever, if we're in a match play, or if we're on, TV's a little different. There was always an urgency, a shot clock, but wasted time always drove me crazy. So in bowling against somebody, It was that one that puts around and took forever to get there. Come on, let's go. They're in the third frame. Let's go. That was, so I'm not going to get into whether I liked the person or didn't like the person as much as I was always aggravated and couldn't stand the people that were putzing around. Everyone I loved bowling against, because if I was bowling against them, whether it be a match play or a TV show, it meant I had a great week. You know, I'm beating a score, not necessarily a person. If that makes any sense.
That does make sense. We've got a guy here in Louisville. He doesn't bowl anymore. He coaches. He was Team USA in the mid-'70s, had a lot of success out in Vegas at the mini eliminator, the high roller. His name's Vinny Atria. And you knew, you know, when I was entering the adult leagues back in the, I guess, late 2000s, 2009, 2010, I knew that when I crossed with Vinny at a tournament, or heaven forbid, I caught him in match play, that one game match was going to take about 30 minutes.
Exactly right.
But I couldn't stand bowling against him.
And that's where I lead to on that question, was simply great bowler. They aggravate me. And in Japan, you did. So if you were talking and it was your left was going and right was going, you literally had to run. No time to grab your rosin. No time to dry off your hand. You had to go. You did not miss your shot. Period. Whether you ran from talking to someone up on the approach, that's your bad luck. You didn't prepare. So there was no gimmies, where in the States, there's a lot of gimmies. People pitsy around forever. But yes, it's aggravating.
Well, and that's maybe something that some of the young bowlers who are watching this broadcast can maybe learn. I know that I'm only 33, but I'm an old soul. I've had conversations with people, you know, with this COVID-19 pandemic, talking about, well, how could leagues do things? Maybe they could run 2 shifts, and people have said there's no way you can do 2 shifts. I'm thinking back to myself, we had 2-shift leagues all the time back in the 80s and 90s because people bowled when they were up. But that's a completely different topic for a completely different day.
It's exactly right. It's time consuming. It's a waste of time is really what it is. It is a totally different topic. You're exactly correct.
All right, we'll reel it back in, and we'll now transition from, again, we talked Eagles, and we talked about all your success on the PWBA Tour, where most of your competition, with the exception of a few doubles events, was singles competition. And then in the mid-2000s, and the opportunity came about for the professionals and former professionals to become a part of Team USA. And if ever there was a dream team of Team USA, I think 2008, 2009, that realm, what a phenomenal group of ladies were put together to represent the United States. And you, of course, had the ability to go to the PABCON Women's Championships in 2008, pick up a couple of gold medals, and then represent the United States at the World Women's Championships in your hometown of Las Vegas in 2009. You guys came up a little bit short, but if you can just describe some of the feelings in both of those experiences, both in PABCON and at the World Championships, just being with that group of ladies and being able to represent your country and just get up on the podium and hear your national anthem.
Oh, without a doubt. It's a dream of anybody. And it was the first year pros were allowed. Put my resignation in, my resume in, and absolutely thrilled to be part of it. Again, in my decisions of becoming a professional bowler early on, it was one of the things that you waive your right to amateur and Team USA stuff from the get-go at that time. Every one of those players on the team I'm still in contact today with. Love every one of them. Absolute dream team. Always bowling in Las Vegas had their pros and cons. It didn't. It was always great to bowl in front of friends and family in the city, but it's also very distracting in the same aspect. It's much easier. It's just like working from home. You have distractions, and it's easier to pack up, and you're focused a lot better when you get out of your normal environment. But it was a thrill of a lifetime. We did come up short on winning the gold. If I had to do it again, I'd do it exactly the same way with all of these bowlers. And it's interesting. It might have turned out a little bit differently had 2008 and 2003 or 4, where we were still sharp and we hadn't bowled on tour. PWBA was not in play since 2003, and so it was 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 years of not being in competition type of thing. It might have been a different outcome, because you're not quite as sharp as you were doing it for a living every day, and or being involved in bowling every day at that point. But it was a thrill of a lifetime. I wouldn't change a thing. It also allowed me at that point to become a athlete position on the board of directors for USBC, which I served for 4.5 years. So it actually, so again, in my bowling life and career, it's ended up being where I get to play both sides. So here I am on Team USA, a dream team for 2008 and 9, and then by doing that, it allowed me to be on the administrative part of it also for bowling. I've been very fortunate in my career and how I've taken part in the bowling world.
Now, you really have done it all, as you mentioned, being on the board of directors, and then also in 2009, being elected to the USBC Hall of Fame. Of course, a moment that we all knew was coming, and that was the year that it happened for you. And then a decade later, it was the PWBA Hall of Fame. Can you describe those two honors and the fact that the PWBA really is where you found your success and made a name for yourself, but yet that one came so much later, of course, due to circumstances, but both incredibly special, but probably in different ways, if you could describe those.
Totally in different ways. The PWBA did launch and allow the USBC. I was fortunate in getting WIBC and USBC credentials for the Hall of Fame, but it was PWBA, LPBT, PWBA that kept me bowling to do that. And one of the sad things was the missing out of the Hall of Fame from 2003 till last year. So what is that? 16 years of no PWBA Hall of Fame. And kudos to USBC in activating and getting that back up and running. And it's a reflection of what I hope 20-year-olds are looking at in their dreams and desires to make the Hall of Fame one day. After they've served their 20, 25-year career being a bowler, I couldn't be happier for PWBA to be back up and running and competing. Wow, I've missed having my heart beat that special way and that thrill to need a strike and that dream. It was a bittersweet moment for me in the PWBA Hall of Fame. It was not only was it an absolute thrill, but it also brought up, again, a bit of sadness in that it's the last Hall of Fame. And I say that so honorably because I'm honored and so lucky in my life to be where I am in the Hall of Fame. But it was my last one. It was the end of a Hall of Fame. It was the end of my chance to really talk to people and tell them what I was all about, my career, and how wonderful of a life I've had as a bowler, and then to make sure I really thank the industry and the people who were behind my success, because success is not earned solely on yourself. You create a team to give you success, and whether it's league, whether it's local tournaments, whether it's the big stage type of thing. And it was such a thrill. I'm so sad to have missed it this year. I had bought my dress for this year's induction here in Las Vegas for the PWBA induction, and I think I think it was all my fault. I think I bought the dress, and the next day the world shut down, type of thing. I look forward to being part of the years to come.
Well, now the last 15 or 20 years of your career have been incredibly successful and rewarding and filled with opportunities that may have been different than the 15 or 20 before that, but equally rewarding, I'm sure. And now we're in a bizarre world right now. Things are wacky, but they certainly will return to normal in some sense. And when that does happen, what's next? What's the next phase, the next 15 years of your career? In bowling, are we going to see you back on the lanes now? Maybe that 50 has happened. Are there's some senior events, some senior opportunities? What's up next for Wendy Macpherson, and maybe there's some more Hall of Fame opportunities in a different capacity?
I am a bowler at heart. I make reference all the time to how I work administratively. I do a lot of my decisions bowling wise, and how being a bowler, how I want to be treated and how I want to see things done, my opinion. Being a bowler, in my heart and soul says I need to be a champion and I need to win. And I think winning requires dedication and practice and all the necessity things to get to that point, which is not what I'm doing. So my competitive level is zero. Not my desire, but my training is not happening now. So unfortunately, well, I am a senior. Okay, Wendy, you said it. First thing in life is admitting that I am a senior. 52 years old. I have not bowled one senior queens here in town. And I don't say that proudly in that, for 2 years, the senior queens have been coming to Vegas. I have been eligible. I don't want to go to bowl. I want to go to win, and I need to practice to win. So because I am running around doing other things now, my practicing and my conditioning has suffered in the aspect of being competitive, and I'm not going to just go. So that's why I have not participated in any events other than maybe a couple team events with some friends when they come to town. I'll join them on that because it's fun. But being competitive isn't always necessarily fun. It is a job and it is a task. Fun is looking back at it, but it's not always fun. Fun is a lot of recreational part of it, and it's a hard differential between the two to be competitive and then have it be fun too. It's difficult to do.
Well, we certainly appreciate all of your hard work within the industry, of course, and seeing you when we can at the events and the festivities. And I hope to see you back on the lanes again soon as well, in some capacity. Before we get going for today, since we are here to talk about the Open Championships, you mentioned earlier what it was like coming out there on the big stage for the first time, even after all you've seen and accomplished in your career. So we're just hoping to get a few final OC thoughts from you as far as what it was. What was the most special thing that brought you back to the OC year after year? Maybe you have a favorite host city, and then some advice for the next generation of Open Championships bowlers.
It is very intimidating. As far as a favorite host city, my Open Championships, I haven't gone back to Corpus. Oh, wow, without a doubt, Corpus Christi is my favorite. We haven't come back. I haven't. Point is, I haven't repeated in any favorite cities. But it's always such an aura of, walking in. Whoa. Sorry. Walking in and, going through the booths and seeing your friends, and it's absorbing the whole experience and your preparation and asking questions. And again, I'm a firm believer you don't get anywhere in life unless you have a team, and even your friends that are in the booths and who's around and the workers. Point is you have friends that will say a comment or this or that, or let you know where people are bowling to go watch a little bit. I'm a big watcher. I'm not necessarily a graph reader. I'm a watcher. I like to watch ball reaction. I like to watch a lot of, anyways, I like to watch. I like to learn, absorb. So maybe I'm a visually a better learner. So when you get to, the Open Championships, you watch and you watch how other people do it and how do they check in and how do they sit and how do they prep and how do they make sure that they're ready to get on the big stage and how do they walk and pull and how do they have their shoes and their surfaces done and, how are you not rushing and feeling that franticness? How do you manage your time really on making sure that you're prepped? Probably time management is number one in all of these things because making sure that you do things specifically from, the side events you're getting into during your squad to your surface preparation. And again, you learn and watch and you prepare to do it.
All right. Now, Daniel, as the bowling fan and a Wendy fan and the OC guy, any final thoughts, questions? I'm sure there's a lot you'd like to ask of the Hall of Famer.
Just a lot of what you just said. You and I are cut from the same cloth in that I spent a lot of time, obviously, at the OC last year watching bowling. A lot of our job is watching scores, but for my own selfishness, I was watching a lot of the great bowlers. Like you said, what surface do they have on the ball? What area of the lane are they playing? Because even though as a USBC employee, my scores don't count, I still want to put the best number up possible for my own personal record. So I was watching a lot of ball motion, ball tracking, as well as watching scores. So a lot of time that I spent on the concourse at the South Point Bowling Plaza was spent pulling double duty, one for work and one for personal reasons. Matt, you didn't know that. I apologize. I still didn't get anything wrong, by the way. I didn't miss any lead changes, but I've told this story a couple of times on the podcast, and I want to tell it to you since you brought up the act of watching bowling. The first time that I went to the Open Championships was 2010 in Reno, and we got to the city. A bunch of us dropped our stuff off at the hotel, and they were going to go grab some dinner. And I said, I'll meet you guys in a little bit. I want to go to the stadium because I'd never been to the stadium before. And I went up and I sat in the very front row of the stadium seating. And I don't recall there being anybody there that I knew. There were no big names. I just wanted to watch. I wanted to be in the stadium. And I spent probably an hour and a half just watching bowling because it's something that I've grown up doing from growing up in the pro shop to running around the bowling center on Friday nights when my parents bowled the mixed league to watching tournaments in between squads of events I was bowling. It's just something that I love to do. And so we're very similar in that we just love to watch bowling, whether it's the act of watching the sport or watching it to learn for our own reasons.
Absolutely, Daniel. I totally agree 100%. Again, and it just it brings warm fuzzies in both aspects of it, and you can never learn enough, without a doubt.
100%. We are never done learning in this sport. And anyone who thinks they're done learning, that's when they start getting beat.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Terrific insight there from Daniel Ferris and our Hall of Famer, Wendy Macpherson. We appreciate everybody joining us in the chat today as well. We see a drop in there from Linda Barnes, the Hall of Famer as well. Always nice to talk to Linda and Chris and the whole family there. And of course, she was part of that photo of Team USA in 2009. Some great memories today here on the Inside the OC podcast. And we've got more shows coming up every Tuesday and Thursday here on Bowl TV. Also the PWBA podcast on Mondays and Wednesdays, the Sport of Bowling show on Fridays, and some new terrific, great content behind the wall on Bowl TV. Daniel Ferris, Jamil Williams Jr., Curtis Von Kruger, the whole crew putting some great new shows together. Make sure to check out Bowl TV to get a look at those throughout the weeks as well. Wendy Macpherson, we appreciate you so much and all of your great stories today. And of course, for sharing that emotion with us. 2006, I'll never forget it. And certainly, of course, you will not either.
Matt, thank you. Daniel, thank you. What in life, sometimes memories are a lot of what you only have of great things in life. And it was fun to reminisce on memories and plan for the future and try to do it again.
All right, well, we'll look forward to the next opportunity, to the next storyline, to the next 800 perhaps. And folks, it was another great conversation today. You never know, Wendy. We'll see you down the line. The rest of you folks, that is the news for now. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the lanes.